I'm Ed Demerly. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Malaysia. Actually, the part of Malaysia that's called North Borneo. I think about it, I start getting choked up, but just getting in the boat for the last time and heading downriver. And assuming that I probably would never be back there again. I mean, I still hope to someday, and I kind of intend to when I retire one of these days. So Ed Demerly, I was in Malaysia 14 in 1967 and 68. And it was a wonderful experience. But 40 years thereafter, when I retired and had a little bit of money and all the time in the world, I finally responded to the many requests of my former students to return to the village. In my village there was a VSO British volunteer who had served there a year, and she had been back there a dozen times, and why wasn't I going back? And I always had excuses that I was raising a family, I didn't have money, I had teaching obligations. But when they learned that I had retired, well, now what? Now you can come back. And my wife said, yes, you can, go, but don't take me. She's very allergic to insect bites and would not be a place to be. And so I planned this excursion and did find myself back in my small village and in the North Borneo, the Malaysian state where I served. And especially returning to my village was a dramatic experience. I had seen, my former students had sent me pictures, and I had seen some of the changes, and I was aware that it was not the village that I used to live in. First of all, I arrived by pickup truck, and when I was in the Peace Corps, this was a small village of 300 people if you extend it up and down the river to every little independent subsistence farm. And to get to the village back in the 60s, it was a 4-hour boat trip upriver. There was no electricity, no phone service, no running water, no traffic, no roads. It was the real Peace Corps experience. So, returning 40 years later, I returned into the village by pickup, and I didn't realize when I was in the village that I was in the same village. Everything was different, everything. The house I lived in wasn't there. The schools I taught in were not there. The church that was part of the mission was not there. What was there? Oh, I should say the tropical jungle, rainforest, was not there. The river was still there, and the hillside on which the church and the schools were built was still there. So what was there? For one thing, there was in the village on a hilltop was the satellite tower for communications with cell phones and internet service, which I don't have here in the middle of Michigan, in the place where we have our cottage. I can't use my cell phones, but in this little village, that was there. I visited the house of one of my former students. His grandchildren were playing Game Boy on their television and having a great time. There is a new church built on the very top of the hill, and 40 years earlier the church was a little kind of bamboo structure on stilts with handmade benches without backs and a little pump organ, miniature pump organ. and no glass in the windows, a very primitive thing. Now it's a painted big building with made of cement block structure. Because I was there on a special occasion, but I think it's not unusual for their normal services. Essentially, we had a rock service with guitars and drums and saxophone. We had 4 lead singers, young people, a kind of a dynamic performance. And for this special occasion, although it could happen more than on this special occasion, the procession was from another building outside with the priests and the bishop coming, but before them were about 8 or 10 local girls dressed all alike in white in flowing gowns. And for at least a half hour before the service started, it was music, and they were dancing, and it was not the old church service I used to go to, but it was delightful. Then when the congregation was singing, they projected the words in Malay on a screen up above, so I could sing along. I could say the words if I didn't know exactly what they were saying. Many of them I knew the song in English anyway. And I've not seen that in churches here, but I'm sure there are churches that have that.
What religion was that, if you're asking?
Anglican, Australian Anglican Church. The whole community showed up for that. We also, now there was traffic and parking spaces and one paved road through town. It's about a mile in length. What's remained the same pretty much is the population, I think, is almost the same. There are new school buildings on the same location, essentially. It still is a Christian Anglican community as it was established, and but there is electrical wiring, phone service, cell phones, computers, internet service, running water. It's almost a modern town. But the people haven't changed. It's still a very small village, very interested in each other and in a community spirit of helping each other. Everyone knows everybody else. Very much welcoming to the outsider, as I was then and now. Even my students and their children, it was almost like 40 years earlier in their interest in America and their interest in anyone from outside. My former student gave me a little tour of the school, which now has a staff room. Didn't when I was there. And he took me into the staff room, showed me the schedule for the teachers and where English came into that, and he showed me his desk, and on his desk was a beat-up, faded old hardcover book that I couldn't even read the cover of it because it was unreadable. And he said, "Do you remember this?" And I said, "No." So he showed it to me and opened the cover page. It was an American dictionary that I had left as part of the library along with some of my Peace Corps locker books. And on the opening page, my aunt and uncle had given me this dictionary when I started college. And I had taken it with me there. And I had a little inscription of that. And then when I left, I had added that I was donating it to the school. And he said he uses it every day. And it looked like it. When I returned to the States, I sent him an updated version of the same dictionary.
I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Borneo. I always say Borneo, although it was part of Malaysia, but Borneo is the kind of handle. And so we were sitting up late at night telling our Peace Corps stories to each other, and Linda looked at me and said, "Let's go back." We planned it so that we would arrive at night and found a little, hotel type place to stay, and got up in the morning and went into one of the coffee shops, and right away one of my students recognized me. And
From 30 years
from
earlier?
30 years earlier, yeah. And came up, and it was pretty emotional, pretty cool experience.